White House crisis, the Starr Report, shocking, painful, and now public. The prosecutor accuses the president of lying under oath, witness tampering, obstructing justice, and abusing his power. Dates, times, places, and graphic details about the president's affair with Monica Lewinsky. Tonight, the White House fights back, while an emotional president asks for forgiveness.
I don't think there is a fancy way to say that I have sinned.
What now? What next? Can Bill Clinton survive as president?
The White House Crisis, a special edition of NBC Nightly News with Tom Brokaw. Reporting tonight from Washington.
Good evening. It is a night to remember and a night to shudder. In the long history of the American presidency, there's never been anything like this. It was a day that began with the president near tears saying, "I have sinned." It ends with the country reading detailed charges of the president's sex acts with Monica Lewinsky, reading detailed charges that he lied under oath, encouraged others to lie, and tampered with evidence. It is only the beginning of what promises to be a long and contentious process that will determine whether Bill Clinton stays in office. We begin tonight with the details of the Starr Report. Here's NBC's Lisa Myers.
In brutal and at times graphic detail, prosecutors lay out how the president allegedly lied and obstructed justice in both civil and criminal investigations, charging Clinton engaged in a pattern of conduct that was inconsistent with his constitutional duty to faithfully execute the laws. Among the most serious charges, that the president lied 3 times in grand jury testimony just last month about the nature and duration of his relationship with Monica. Specifically, the president told a grand jury that he never touched Lewinsky's breast or other intimate parts of her body, and therefore had not perjured himself in his deposition in the Jones case last January when he said he had not had sexual relations with Lewinsky. Prosecutors cite at least 13 instances in which he touched her in very intimate ways, including one episode involving a cigar. In another disclosure not likely to sit well with Congress, the report also charges the president and Lewinsky were having sex while the president was on the phone with 3 different members of Congress in November 1995.
The definition of high crimes and misdemeanors is going to be affected by the public reaction to the facts. And the public reaction to the facts, I think, is going to be horrendous.
And there are new details on how the president allegedly obstructed justice. First, the use of what were called, quote, sham cover stories to hide their relationship. For example, saying Monica was friends with the president's secretary, Betty Curry, not with the president. The report charges that in December, after Lewinsky was a witness in the Jones case, the president again suggested she use a cover story to hide their relationship in her sworn affidavit. Then, in January, when Lewinsky expressed concern that someone might challenge parts of her false affidavit, she says the president suggested a lie about how she got her Pentagon job. Quote, "You could always say that the people in legislative affairs got it for you or helped you get it." Also, new details on how the president allegedly coached Betty Curry to lie in not 1 but 2 meetings. Curry testified the president told her, "You were always there when Lewinsky was there, right? Monica came on to me and I never touched her, right? She wanted to have sex with me and I can't do that, right?"
I think the continuing and ongoing nature of the obstructive behavior, I think the attempts to suborn perjury are absolutely devastating.
And the report paints an unflattering portrait of the president as someone who instantly struck up a sexual affair with a 22-year-old. Lewinsky testified that weeks into their sexual relationship, the president still called her kiddo, and she wasn't sure he even knew her name. Lisa Myers, NBC News, Washington.
Earlier today at the White House prayer breakfast, President Clinton, after an introduction by Vice President Gore that was correct but not overly warm, the president made his most complete apology yet.
It is important to me that everybody who has been hurt know that the sorrow I feel is genuine. First and most important, my family, also my friends, my staff, my cabinet, Monica Lewinsky and her family, and the American people. I have asked all for their forgiveness.
At the White House, the president's legal team has been in a counterattack posture all day, releasing a rebuttal to the Starr Report before that report was even made public. They continue to insist that Starr has gone too far. These are not impeachable offenses. NBC's David Bloom is at the White House again tonight. David?
Tom, the White House tried today to cast Ken Starr's reports as being about sex and nothing more. And they accused the independent counsel of, quotes, trying to set up the president. The president, as you say, offered his most profound apology to date, weeping after that meeting with religious leaders in which he told them, "My spirit is broken." Today, the president told religious leaders, "I have sinned." But his lawyers told the nation, this is personal, not impeachable.
This is not a news story. A man tried to keep an inappropriate relationship private.
At this morning's prayer breakfast, the president told religious leaders, quote, "I have done wrong. I have repented."
I agree with those who have said that in my first statement after I testified, I was not contrite enough. I don't think there is a fancy way to say that I have sinned.
Mr. Clinton, who for the first time asked for the forgiveness of Monica Lewinsky and her family, said he has a broken spirit but a still strong heart, and he promised to mount a vigorous defense to save his presidency. And his lawyers delivered, preempting the release of Starr's report with a 73-page White House rebuttal. Clinton attorney David Kendall called Starr's report a one-sided attempt to humiliate, embarrass, and politically damage the president.
Let me be clear. The president has acknowledged his personal wrongdoing. And so no amount of gratuitous allegations about his relationship with Ms. Lewinsky, no matter how graphic, can alter the fact that the president did not commit perjury, he did not obstruct justice, he did not tamper with witnesses, and he did not abuse the power of his office.
As to specific allegations, the White House report claims the president did not lie under oath because Mr. Clinton believed a sexual affair or sexual relationship meant only sexual intercourse. And his attorney David Kendall insisted the president never told Monica Lewinsky to lie. There was, Kendall insisted, no concealment story. Finally tonight, in its 73-page rebuttal, the White House asks, where's Whitewater? White House lawyers pointing out that there is no mention of that original land deal controversy, nor the FBI files case, nor the scandal involving the travel office. The original purposes, the White House says, of Ken Starr's investigation. The president's report concludes, and I quote, Starr's report has little intention other than to embarrass the president and titillate the public by producing a document that is little more than an unreliable, one-sided account of sexual behavior. Now, Tom, the White House waits to see if the public sees it that way. Tom?
David Bloom at the White House tonight. Thanks very much. On Capitol Hill, where in one way or another, this will be settled by impeachment or political pressure or by censure, it was a day of lofty rhetoric, stunned reactions, and utter uncertainty. NBC's Gwen Eiffel now. Gwen?
Tom, you said it. The stunning revelations in Ken Starr's report to Congress today divided lawmakers along sharply partisan lines.
The matter goes to the House Judiciary Committee, which will examine the report. Its members were already disagreeing within hours after the report's release.
If the story that we're reading in this report is ultimately substantiated, I believe it's devastating.
The president didn't do what Lyndon Johnson did and lie about Vietnam. The president lied about an extramarital affair. Let's put this in context.
Lawmakers will take copies of the 445-page report home with them this weekend. Then Monday, the House will release 2,000 pages of sensitive background information to the 35 members of the House Judiciary Committee, including grand jury testimony and tape recordings. After investigations and hearings, the committee will decide whether to recommend impeachment to the full House. If that resolution passes the House, it would take a formal Senate trial to impeach the president.
Tom, the House has about a month to decide what to do with this report and whether to have full-fledged hearings, which probably wouldn't begin until early next year. Tom.
Thanks very much, Gwen Eiffel, tonight. Our Washington bureau chief and moderator of Meet the Press is Tim Russert, who's been with us here all day long. Tim, it seems to me that the critical stage for the president, the next 2 days, the weekend, by Monday morning, we'll have a very good idea of what the public reaction to all of this has been.
Exactly right, Tom. One White House advisor said, "Wake me up Monday morning." They know the next 48 hours are crucial. They will be polling heavily. They want to know, will the American people say the President of the United States had sex with an intern in the Oval Office and lied about it under oath? He has to go? Or will the American people say, we know the President had sex with an intern in the Oval Office and we know he lied about it, but that does not measure up to impeachment. Let him stay.
Tim, what's the most serious charge here? Perjury before the grand jury?
Absolutely, Tom. It was the second time the President had an opportunity to testify under oath. If the American people, if Congress determines that given a second chance, he still continued to lie under oath, then he faces very severe legal and political problems.
Thank you very much. Tim Russert tonight in Washington. What about Hillary Rodham Clinton? Still ahead tonight, NBC News in depth. How's she coping with this personal betrayal?
She's able to find this enormous inner strength that pulls her through times like this. And I know that she'll pull through it, and she'll weather the storm.
The First Lady caught up in the President's lies. Now, where does she turn? We have more now on what could be the most serious charge the president faces tonight, abusing the powers of his office to protect himself. It's similar to a charge that was instrumental in bringing down President Nixon during Watergate. More now from NBC's Pete Williams.
The report essentially accuses the president of abuse of power by deploying a squadron of government lawyers to help him hide the truth. It says the president abused his constitutional authority, misleading the grand jury and the public. It says he was wrong to use White House lawyers to block investigators by asserting executive privilege and attorney-client privilege and standing by while Secret Service agents fought in court to keep from testifying. It says he pushed White House lawyers to defend him, blending official business with his personal problems. And it says his lies in public and to his aides dragged out the length of the grand jury's investigation. Some legal scholars say Starr makes a legitimate point, noting that the president's actions forced his own aides to hire lawyers and testify.
It's a rather cynical and selfish thing to do, and it's certainly inconsistent with the kind of behavior we expect from the President of the United States.
The charge echoes one of the impeachment counts against President Nixon, abuse of power. But even Mr. Clinton's critics concede that what Nixon did was much worse, including asking the FBI to wiretap political opponents and trying to get the IRS to intimidate Nixon's enemies. But some defense lawyers say Starr is off base, that no one, not even a president, has an obligation to help investigators find evidence to use against them.
He is being charged with doing no more than what every defendant has the right to do. Resist, fight back, refuse to provide evidence against himself.
Abusing the powers of office is a serious allegation, but it's not a crime. Even so, most constitutional scholars agree that an offense can be legal and still be grounds for impeachment. Pete Williams, NBC News, Washington.
When we come back, NBC News in depth tonight, asking for forgiveness. It's been the president's mantra for weeks now, but will it be enough to save his presidency? NBC News in depth tonight, the First Lady betrayed, lied to, humiliated, undoubtedly. These must be the toughest days of her life and her long relationship with the President, Bill Clinton. Now, the First Lady of the United States is struggling in full view of the public. A very personal crisis. How does she handle it? NBC's Andrea Mitchell tonight in depth.
Even as the details of her husband's sexual affair flashed around the world, the First Lady still went to work tonight.
We are so pleased to have you here on the South.
And earlier at her husband's side during his confession this morning.
For our First Lady, give her the strength to continue to show all of us what grace and courage and mercy look like.
Enough grace and courage to be her husband's chief cheerleader at a political event last night.
And I'm proud to introduce my husband and our president, Bill Clinton.
How can she carry on now that the entire nation can learn the sexual details? Friends and former aides who have been with the First Lady recently.
I'm sure this is a time where she's very torn between helping him through a very difficult period, which she's done for years, and dealing with the hurt that she feels. She probably doesn't know whether to kill him or save him.
I think it's beyond painful. I think this is unprecedented, and I think that this is clearly somebody who's an intensely private person.
Making it even harder, the Starr Report charges the president lied to his wife and cabinet, one of the official grounds for possible impeachment. Count 11, misleading them so they would mislead the public. The Secretary of State today.
The president's actions were wrong, and so were his statements, misleading the American people and the cabinet.
More remarkable, another cabinet secretary, Donna Shalala of Health and Human Services, challenged the president directly when he met with the cabinet last night. Shalala tells NBC News his response to her was pointed but not testy when she told him leaders are judged by good behavior, not just good policy. He bristled, but they talked it over this afternoon. But no cabinet member is quitting, and neither is the First Lady. The president's aides even want her to give a speech defending him. Her staff says if she does, it will be on her own time when she's ready. Andrea Mitchell, NBC News, Washington.
The First Lady has said through a spokesman that she forgives her husband, and for many days now, forgiveness is something that Mr. Clinton has been asking for, not only of his wife, but of the nation. But will those pleas strike a chord with the public? NBC's Jim Avila continues tonight, in depth.
I may not be.
President Clinton's apologies are aimed at a nation brought up to forgive. Americans are trained to say they're sorry by religion and culture. Experts say it's in us to apologize in formal conversations with God and each other.
I am required by my own religious convictions to grant forgiveness to any person that asks for it.
Greg Quiggle teaches theology at Chicago's Moody Bible Institute, a conservative Christian who, like most in the predominant religions of the U.S., believe that sins must be forgiven if specific rules are followed. Catholics have formal confession, sins revealed to God through a priest. Jews must request forgiveness 3 times and set aside 1 full day a year for formal atonement. Protestants teach personal confession, apologies and promises to reform direct to God. All of that creating a national inclination that could help a president asking for a second chance. Loyola of Chicago theologian Todd Johnson.
Maybe what the American people are looking for is some sense of conversion that now we'll see as a new Bill Clinton.
But there's a catch for the president and the nation's natural propensity to forgive. The apology must be perceived as genuine. At the International Forgiveness Institute on the University of Wisconsin campus, psychology professor Robert Enright says there are 5 steps that make an apology genuine. First, the offending party must see the hurt he or she has caused, admit the error, feel personal guilt, pain, or suffering. And then the hard part, say the experts. The sinner must show they've learned from the error and demonstrate that it will never happen again. Much more involved and time-consuming than just saying sorry.
The deeper the hurt, the longer it takes to forgive.
Some believe Americans are too tolerant, forgiving too casually, and creating a country with lax standards.
We have no way of knowing whether Bill Clinton was actually contrite or not. From a religious perspective, only God can make that judgment.
But the president is not just asking God for forgiveness, he's asking America, and depending on the forgiving nature of its people, to be believed again. Jim Avila, NBC News, Chicago.
We'll have the day's other news when we come back, including a new prime minister for Russia tonight. Wall Street seemed relieved today that the Ken Starr report didn't contain any major surprises. The Dow was up almost 180 points. The NASDAQ rallied as well. It was up more than 56 points. At the end of this week of wild gains and losses, the Dow finished up more than 155 points. NASDAQ was up more than 75 points. In Moscow tonight, after days of uncertainty with Boris Yeltsin's government close to collapse, a new prime minister is on the job, Evgeny Primakov. The hardline foreign minister and former spy chief who was a friend of Gorbachev. He was approved by the Russian parliament after Yeltsin's first choice for the job. Viktor Chernomyrdin was rejected twice. And here at home, Tropical Storm Francis dumped so much rain on New Orleans that it looked more like Venice than New Orleans. Streets totally flooded, visibility close to zero, walking almost impossible. I'll be back in a moment. Final thoughts on the Starr Report. Updating tonight's major news, the Starr Report is out now, 445 pages outlining the independent counsel's case against the president. There are specific allegations of shocking sex acts between the president and Monica Lewinsky. There are numerous charges of serious illegalities by the president. It is now for the Congress, and especially you, the American citizens, to determine what happens next. It is impossible to know what the judgment will be in the end. This is a grave time in the history of the presidency and the country, and it will not be easy or pleasant or unavoidable for anyone. There will be much more tonight on a special 2-hour edition of Dateline at 8, 7 Central, and throughout the night on MSNBC and cable, and continuing coverage throughout the weekend here on NBC. I'm Tom Brokaw. Good night from Washington for now.
NBC Nightly News is America's most watched evening news program.